The first 3 to 6 months were interesting, but oh my God, after you get past it and everything starts to kind of come back to normal, kind of feel like a kid again. It's hands down the best decision I've ever made.
The Imperfects invites you into a very safe place. A place where we share without judgment and drink heaps of vulnerability. Grab yourself a cup. This is the Vulnerabilitea House.
I'm really, really excited about today's guest. Murph, I didn't tell you before we started recording. I don't know why. I feel like I was planning to, but I love the Wombats. The Wombats. I didn't finish that sentence. I'm a huge fan. I'm huge. I'm a huge fan of the Wombats. Your first, major album, Guide to Love, Loss and Desperation, I played so much. And when I knew you were coming on, I put that album on. I haven't listened to it in years, and I still knew so many of the words. Like, it is such a great album. So great. I mean, you guys are incredible. So stoked to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me.
So this is back probably in 2012. I was starting this program. I was doing this program in education, and every Friday I drive about 3 hours down to this community, and it was for boys who are in and out of juvenile detention. So I would play your music in the car on the way down there to get me in this, I just found it uplifting or energizing, or just made me feel good, because it was very hard. It was very difficult work I had to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the music just, I don't know what it was. It just put me in this headspace to be able to work with these boys who were really challenging at the absolute best of times. And yeah, so again, I just reiterate, we just think you're great, basically.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's mad to think of our music soundtracking other people's lives. It still doesn't really never sinks in, to be honest.
Well, we
didn't actually let Josh say how great you are. So.
You don't have to say how great I am. It's okay.
No, you are. You've got a gift with melody, actually, I got to say, because I went back and listened to some stuff this morning as well, and I cannot get Moving to New York out of my head.
Yeah.
In a good way. And that bass line is amazing.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. We love a chromatic bass line. Yeah.
Well, now, Murph, if you would mind telling each of us why you think we're great, that would be cool. Just seems fair.
That's how we always start the show.
And after that, you can tell me what a chromatic bass line is. We'll do that as well. But,
yes.
And of course, the new album, Oh the Ocean, is out now. Do you have a memory of like a gig or a performance you did where it was just, you thought to yourself, how have we got here? Like, this is just unbelievable. We find ourselves in this position.
Not really, no. Because I don't think I personally will ever get to a place where I don't think that the rug can be pulled from underneath us at any given second.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Splendor in 2018, 2019, I don't know which one. And I was wearing a beautiful white shirt for it. But that was cool. We've had lots of kind of shows where it's been like, wow, that was incredible. But never like...
We've made it.
We've made it. Plant our flag in the moon or anything, you know.
So that's amazing that even after everything you guys have achieved, there's a sort of feeling of this might all come to an end.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's kind of healthy, but also... new things emerge that you have to deal with, and everything's constantly changing, and the plates are kind of shifting around, and you're constantly having to adapt.
Yeah, I always think it's kind of amazing that marriages last, and I kind of feel the same way about any band that sticks together for a long period of time, because like the people you are now are just so different. It's kind of a miracle. A beautiful miracle that you guys are together.
Yeah. I mean, we were all very similar at the start, I think, you know, but we were just getting absolutely shit-faced and having the best time ever.
Yeah.
And then I guess everyone, mid to late 20s, we all start kind of changing and becoming our own individuals. But now we've kind of come full circle at a place where we can
get shit-faced again.
where we can, where we see each other as individuals and kind of, we love each other because of how different we are. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because have you all got kids now? Oh, you've got 2 kids. You've all got kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
Todd's got a daughter. Dan's got a son. I've got two girls. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, there is a deck of cards staring at you in front. So the way this works, for people who haven't heard, so I imagine there'll be a lot of new people listening, fans of yours. So this is called the Vulnerability House, and the way it works is there's a deck of cards, and on that deck of cards there's a bunch of questions written on each card, and each question is sort of designed to invoke some form of vulnerability or a memory or some sort of feeling that you may be having now or had in the past, whatever. But yeah, just pick them at random. If you take the top 3,
Okay.
and choose if any of the top 3 you feel comfortable answering, then.
But I'm supposed to focus on just one.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
one, yeah. I mean, there's no rules really,
Yeah.
except for the ones that I've just laid out very specifically.
And use the word random, but also said the top
Yes.
3. Yeah.
Yeah. So please don't touch any more of the cards.
I really like this one. In what ways do you fear you could negatively impact your children?
Oh, right. Well, then
That's a beauty.
very.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
old are your children, by the way?
5 and 3.
5 and 3. Okay,
Yeah.
gosh. How are you finding that stage?
Yeah, it's a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
That's the best way of describing it. Yeah, it's just mad.
How do you mean wind tunnel? I don't have kids.
Just like everything's coming at you
Oh, yeah,
really
gotcha.
fast, and you're just ducking and weaving.
Mm-hmm.
Literally a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
I read somewhere, or someone said, when you have kids, you'll lose your mind but find your soul. And I thought that resonated with me. And
Oh.
I was like,
gosh.
yeah, that's true.
Where'd you find your soul?
Down the back of the couch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always there.
In the darkness. Yeah, in the abyss.
So yes, in what ways do you fear you could negatively impact your children?
I took my eldest daughter, Dylan, to the Natural History. We always go to the Natural History Museum. So it's just good. We're kind of having a nice time. It's cold. We're learning something. She's happy. I'm happy. And but she wanted to bring all these little plastic crystal things. She just kept putting them in my bag before we drove there, and I was like, "What's she gonna do with these?" And when we got there, she's like, "Well, I want to give them to my friends," and I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? Well, it's just me and you here." And then she went up to some kids to give it to them, and then it suddenly dawned on me that this was her plan for the day. It was to just give random people these crystals and start conversations with them.
Wow.
And
She's 5?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's so sweet. She's very kind of altruistic, and it's really nice. But to me, that's I don't want to
Talk to people.
talk to people.
Yeah.
I just don't want to. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk to other parents, and I know that this is a way to drag me into conversations constantly for the next 6 hours or whatever. So I was like, oh no, maybe people might. Dylan, see, the thing is, maybe people don't act. And then I stopped myself, and I was like, you need to shut up and just let her do this. And so I did, and I dealt with the consequences and the awkward chats. Some of them were awkward, some of them were totally fine. And the joy that she brought to everyone else's day was palpable. And people were coming up to me constantly saying she's the sweetest girl in the world. She's actually just made our day. We're so happy. And she's made our daughter's day or our son's day. And she's going around giving out hundreds of these little crystals. And then that was when it dawned to me. It was well, I'm just projecting all of my BS onto her and stopping, it was the best decision I ever made, was to just be quiet and let it happen and see how it unfolded. And what did unfold was amazing, and has probably helped her confidence astronomically. And I would have just imparted my own ways of thinking and being onto her and turned her into a little version of me which is definitely not the plan.
Without wanting to sound like a therapist, but what, like, with your fear of like talking to people and like having to, because I have a similar thing. It's like, oh God, to have to talk to strangers is scary. But like, do you have like a thought in your head of what will happen if you do? Like, what is there a specific fear that's attached to it?
My sense of self is probably very connected to what others think of me or what I think they think of me or something. I don't know. It's not good. It's not the best. But when you're kind of in an anxious social scenario, I try to be the one that's making other people less anxious somehow.
Yeah.
A lot of times I fail at that actually and make it a lot worse. But yeah, it's kind of very rare that I leave meeting someone for the first time without going, God, the fuck do you say that for, you absolute idiot. I generally try to say something idiotic to try and lower the tone to like to just get all the niceties out of the way and just get it straight down to the brass tacks.
Cut through the bullshit.
Cut through it.
Yeah.
And often that fails and makes it so much worse. There's a reason why we have to kind of, slowly chit chat and work our way into each other's trust and stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than me just, I don't know, saying something grotesque straight off the bat.
It's like because I think I have a similar feeling about small talk where it just feels, when it feels inauthentic and just feels like fake. And you're like, what are we doing? Like, we're just like, we're role playing as people. We're like pretending to be people. Let's just talk like normal, like you would talk to your friends.
Yeah.
But it's very, very hard to do that. And before you know it, you're talking about how great the weather is today.
Yeah.
And you're like, well,
And I've done it again. I've gone to the weather.
Yeah. I'm in it. I'm pretending to be a person. Is that sort of what it is, like in terms of like the fakeness of interactions with people?
No, it's not necessarily the fakeness. It's just an overwhelming fear of what others think of me. I think is what it is. The fakeness doesn't help. But I guess the chit chat is useful. I guess it's like building trust so that the kind of play can happen or something. That kind of makes sense to me. But that still doesn't solve the problem that when I leave, I'll be like, God, why were you talking about dicks or whatever?
Again. Yeah. Well, here comes Dick Guy.
My wife calls me that.
Well, sometimes you just can't get the Instagram handle out of your head.
I totally understand where you're coming from, especially with the way that your children put you in situations that you wouldn't choose to be in. My oldest is a bit younger. He's 4. He's turning 5 in about a month, so not much younger, and wants to make friends at the park. And has been asking me recently, like, we'll go to the park. And I want to be a better parent all the time. And sometimes I find myself for whatever reason, tired or grumpy or just like not being my best. And we'll go to the park and then he'll come up to me and say, can you help me make a friend?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to. So I'm so proud of you for asking. But then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to have to go up to an adult and their kid that I don't know, and I'm in a bad place myself.
Yeah.
And I think like you've got a choice here to not help your child develop social skills but I find myself getting in my own way a lot as a parent, and then I have to just like bite the bullet and do it. But it's tough. It's like I find that kids put you in situations that you would never put yourself in.
Yeah.
And if I can get out of my own way, it can be a great experience, but I often don't.
Yeah. But I have that same feeling all the time. I don't know if you've experienced it where you've made the connection, kind of helped with the friend thing.
Yeah.
And then at some point they have a scrap, or like at some point they'll be like, Daddy, Johnny's calling me or whatever. And then you've got to deal with that as well. It's like, it's unbelievable. We were at this place once in Pasadena. There's like this little track where people are riding around on bikes. My 2 girls were on the same like tricycle, And this was this boy who was probably a year older, and he was like speeding around. And he kept like hitting into the back of them, and we were trying to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. And my wife was like, "Oh, don't worry, girls. You know, I think she said like his mummy's not here, or like he doesn't have like no one's looking out for him." And she kept saying it so loud, so passively aggressively that she wanted someone to hear.
Yeah. Did you get his license plate?
And then and then the mum finally comes over and she's like, "Are you talking about my son?" And then there's this tense kick-off between my wife and this boy's mum, and
You would have
I
loved
can't
that.
remember how it.
This is right in your hitting zone.
I can't remember how it ended. There was a lot of, F words thrown around,
Whoa.
and then my wife walked off, and I was just stood next to this boy's mum. I was like, and then suddenly both my girls started like interacting with the boy, and then before I knew it, they were like best friends. So we all had to then come together. It was horrendous.
If your daughters didn't come in for the save, you would have had to have started talking about dicks, which
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
doesn't always go well.
No.
As a child, do you have recollections of what it was like for you? Like, would have you been the kind of child to go up to people and chat to them? Because our sibling relationships would be very different. Like, you were very, from my understanding, very reticent to go up to people in a playground, but our sister would just like charge ahead to make friends.
Yeah, I just like to mention what we're talking about. I just hold my dick a lot, apparently.
This is as a kid.
Yeah, as a kid, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like,
Not as a parent.
Oh, between the ages of 30 and 36. I wouldn't be caught in public without holding my dick.
age 1 to 3 or 4, that was my anxious move.
Okay.
Apparently, and I'd just stand on the side of the playground doing that, and I stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Just so everyone, just to be clear.
Just to be super clear.
Yeah, incredibly shy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's surprising to me. I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought you'd be very outgoing.
No, I was
Because
so shy.
you are now.
Yes, but I was so shy.
Mm.
Painfully shy.
Yeah. So do you remember for yourself?
Well, the reason I laugh, I just remembered I was at my grandfather's birthday once and tried to kind of go up to a group of people, and I just started like doing squats. I thought doing squats would impress them. So I,
This is in your 30s
I was
as well. Like.
yeah, I was clearly not gifted at this from an early age.
Squats.
But yeah, I don't know what I was doing. It was so weird.
I read somewhere on this, and you said before you don't want to bring your BS into your child's life. I'm so interested in your BS though, as in just 'cause from reading about you, something that I, for some reason, so naively assumed wouldn't be an issue for like a rock star. Like anxiety has been a thing for you in your life that I just, whenever I was like, oh wow, and then thought, no, why? How could I be so nervous to think that just doesn't affect someone who's just like great at getting on stage and performing?
Yeah, I don't associate getting on stage with anxiety. Yeah, when I was like 23, maybe I had my first, like, I guess it turned out to be a panic attack. I thought I was like dying, and it's something that just kind of keeps coming back now and again.
What was that like though? Like the first time you have a panic attack? Josh has spoken about his similar age, I think. Was it around-
Actually, yeah, it could have been 23 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've spoken about it before, but one of the most terrifying things that ever happened to
Yeah.
me at that point.
It was-
Yeah, can you remember the circumstances? Or
I was in bed and I just woke up and my chest was tight and like I was kind of hyperventilating and sweating, and I was like, well, I'm really sick here. My lungs are, I couldn't breathe properly. And I was like, oh, okay, this is it. There we go. And so I went to the doctor and he was like, yeah, this is a panic attack. Here's some diazepam. Off you fuck.
that was it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
But it was only kind of later down the line that I, started doing therapy and stuff to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, wow. That's when the doctor said that to you,
I believe he said off you fuck.
off you fuck. Yeah. Yeah. Just to get the quote right. What was that like? Because I would feel a bit dismissed, but was it a sense of relief of like, well, at least that's
it
the
was,
fix.
it was complete relief because I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was. I thought it was something much worse that was happening, but I guess it was a sense of relief, but also someone telling me, well, it's in your head, and I'm like, well, it's not, because I can feel it in my body and everywhere else. So that was it's kind of confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really lucky that for me, I called you. I called my mum, and I called you. You knew a psychologist that I could go to, and I started going to see her straight away, and it started a really great, incredible, like life-changing sort of 8 years that I saw this psychologist for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so fortunate to have someone to sort of, in this case, Hugh, to say, like, here's what you should do. Sounds like it took you a while to go see a therapist or psychologist. Was there a reason it took a while, or a reason why you started going?
Well, I didn't, because the anxiety attack came and went, and then it was when I first had like a major depressive episode. That was when I started, combining psychotherapy with an antidepressant or whatever. And I've kind of done that, got better, it's happened again, got better, it's happened again. And yeah, so it was more the kind of the low mood, freaky stuff that kind of led me into therapy as opposed to anxiety. But the anxiety came first.
Yeah.
Well, actually, did it? I don't know, probably not. I was probably a miserable bugger when I was like 17 or whatever.
When did you start the Wombats? When did that start?
2003.
How old were you then? Sorry to age you.
21.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Oh, so you had started the music career.
Well, I wouldn't call it a career. We had started the band and were doing all kinds of small shows and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
But I had this therapist a few years ago who described depression, anxiety to me in this beautiful way that has been very helpful, which is that depression and anxiety is the mind ping-ponging between an experienced past and a projected future, and going back and forth until it kind of gives in and says, no, I'm going offline for a while here.
Wow.
And so that's the depression, I guess. When you say I'm going offline for a bit, that's like
that's when it just changes gear because it's not happy with what's happening, so it just shuts off.
Oh, what a description!
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like to you.
And when he said that, I was like, that makes sense, because it would, I'd be hyper fixating on past things, past mistakes, past memories, and then jumping automatically to future prangs, like the things that didn't even come true or didn't even happen. And just, and it just made complete sense to me. And that's why everyone's like, well, you need to practice gratitude, you need to be present. And I need to acknowledge to myself that 99% of the things that I fear just don't actually happen. But still, I never learn from it.
That's tough to do, though.
It's such a consistent thing that my partner, she gets anxiety, and often it is about like feared things that are going to happen. And even though 99% of the time, maybe more, they never happen, in the moment when she's like high anxiety, she's convinced. And it doesn't help me saying, because I can't prove that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't promise that it's not going to happen because I don't know. But it is fascinating to watch someone go through that, where it's happened so many times, but you still, the voice in your head, what I call my partner Jam's anxiety, I call her Annie, because it's like when Annie's here, she's so convincing, and the voice and the things that she says is going to happen. It's like, you better get ready because this is going to happen, or this person's going to do this. She's so convincing. There's nothing I can say that is going to convince her otherwise.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
When you were, as your career and I guess your like life ambitions from like a success point of view, as that got more and your album came out and you played Glastonbury and all these incredible things started happening, how did that affect, if at all, your anxiety and depression, like these episodes you're having?
It kind of went away for a little bit, but then came back harder, and then went away, and then came back harder. That's kind of the easiest way of describing it. and all of a sudden there's drugs and alcohol everywhere to kind of calm any anxieties or make them even worse down the line.
Was it like, was the alcohol and drugs kind of probably not consciously self-medicating, but do you think it was a part of it?
I say alcohol and drugs, but drugs were never a really big part of my story, to be honest. But I can see how touring musicians and just touring people or whatever can kind of become dependent on it, because it's so helpful to kind of, calm you down. If it will calm you down if you're kind of anxious about a show, but it'll also kind of perk you up for the show. It's kind of, it'll put you to sleep, but it's like, I don't know, it kind of puts you to sleep and wakes you up, and it's always there. And every time you get off a tour bus and walk into what is essentially your office for the day, you're surrounded by booze left, right, and centre. So it's no wonder that it becomes a major factor in people's lives.
Do you still drink?
No, I stopped over 2 years ago.
How have you found that?
A journey, but amazing. Just the first 3-6 months were pretty funky, and then it just kept getting better and better and better, and now I almost don't think about it at all, to be honest.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, what was the catalyst for that? Like, what was the lead up? If you don't mind me, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. But,
in periods of high stress, my drinking would go up, and it just got to a point where it was too much. And, I was kind of given an ultimatum, and I also recognized that I needed to make a change because the way it was going was not looking very pretty. And I'd always had this deep sense that at some point I was going to stop, quit, recover, whatever. I always kind of had this feeling like this is not good for me. This is kind of like ripping my soul out, or whatever. And finally did it, which is great.
Yeah, well done. It's no small thing.
Yeah, no, it was pretty freaky at the start.
So you said you had an ultimatum then. It's like a medical ultimatum, or?
No, it was, my wife was like, you gotta, there's 2 options here, and pick one. And so I did, and I'm kind of really thankful that she presented me with that ultimatum, even though I resented her like so much for almost a year, because it just become such a huge factor in my life and how I operated daily, and what was a day going to look like if I wasn't going to have some wafty natural wine at like 8 p.m. with dinner or whatever. It was so interwoven into my life, and now I'm kind of out of that, which is exciting. And now all that resentment has turned into gratitude towards her for forcing/encouraging me to do it.
I'm really interested, and I only ask this as a matter of like, hopefully helping people who are hearing this and going like, oh, I would like to get to that point, or my partner is drinking. How did your wife, if you don't mind me asking, and how did she approach it? How did she speak to you about it in the ultimatum moment?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Because, I won't go into the kind of the details of what happened leading up to it, but lots of shit was happening, at home and outside of home, with work, with everything, and I just couldn't handle it. So I went on an absolute tear up, and then I came to from that, and she was like, "We're not doing this anymore." And I said, they got no rebuttal against that. So let's see what happens.
I was looking. I think it's in the song, I think from your newest album. I think you'll know if it is. There's a lyric that says, "I'm aware that I'm the problem, but that doesn't solve the problem."
Yeah. Well, that describes it all.
Yeah,
It's a good lyric.
It really. I mean, I think people will relate to that, because it's. I mean, particularly, I've never dealt with alcohol or drug abuse or anything like that, but there is that lyric particularly was like, oof, because I read a lot of books about like how to better myself and listen to a lot of podcasts, and I know what to do, generally speaking. Like I know what I should be doing, I know what I shouldn't be doing. And sometimes I kind of mistake learning the thing for actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm very good at like I think like talking to someone and saying like this is what I should be doing, and I can sound very kind of smart about this, but then to actually put it into practice is obviously the bit that matters.
Yeah.
And it is the hardest part.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I'm exactly the same.
Mm.
It's almost like you learn these things and go, God, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then just don't put it into agency. Don't do anything with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just carry on
Just
being
keep
the same. But maybe more self-aware or slightly a wiser person, but still the same POS or whatever.
Now just guilty that I don't do the thing.
Yeah.
That I know I should be doing.
Yeah.
I used to drink a lot more than I do now. Having kids has been the main catalyst for me to slow down drinking, just because I can't handle being hungover like I used to be with kids. And being aware of how short that time is with them as little kids, I just don't want to waste any of it. But when I used to drink a lot more, I had issues, not so much with anxiety, but certainly with low moods, and hence one of the reasons I did have a panic attack, so I guess I did have anxiety issues as well. But one of the things that I only realized this year was like I believe that I was the person I was, not so much when I was drinking, but when I was kind of hungover for 3 days out of every week. For years, I started to believe that was me.
Yeah.
A question for you is, do you feel like you're a different person now than you were to the person when you were drinking?
I never thought I was like a truly awful person when drunk. Although I did eat pasta at someone else's dinner with my own hands in New York once, which was quite bad.
Wow.
You went up to their table and just
Yeah. Yeah, it was like some kind of pasta, and I sat next to them and ate
Creamy or tomato?
I think it was some kind of like ragu scenario. So
Wow.
it wasn't fully creamy. Yeah.
Oh.
So I was doing some pretty bad things, but I mean, at least that one was kind of funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's extremely funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, did they find it funny, or were they
I think one of them found it funny, and
the person whose food it wasn't?
yes. And then they did not. Thankfully, my wife was around at the time, and she took my credit card out and paid for it or whatever. So yeah,
It's like, because that story to me, it like telling it now, it's like that's so funny, and like me replaying it in my head, but in the moment, do you remember it being funny, or was it kind of like hectic
oh, I don't remember any of it
at all?
No.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
kind of like the Bill Murray story, where he apparently went up to someone, had just got the steak or whatever at this Beverly Hills restaurant, and Bill Murray goes up, sits in front of them, takes all the food, just slowly eats it in front of them, and the other person's like, and he just slowly eats it, drinks the wine, and then after, when he's finished, he just puts it all back and just says, "They'll never believe you," and walks out.
If that is true,
I feel like it is.
He does things like that, but I also think, I wonder whether he would do that if he wasn't Bill Murray. Like, if he was never famous.
Yeah.
Is there a part of that he thinks like, oh, well, this is, of course, because he says at the end, "I'll never believe you," but playing into kind of like the mythology of yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any part of you, like as like someone who is a famous rock star, is there a part of you that goes like, I can do this because of what I do?
No. I don't think of myself as a famous anything, or even a rock star, really.
Mm-hmm.
I was just drawing a parallel between how cool he did it and how awful I did it.
There are so many amazing Bill Murray stories like that. Yeah.
But no, back to your question.
Yeah.
I now realize how terrible my kind of thinking and how cyclical my thinking was back then, whereas now I think I'm closer to operating like a fully functioning human being. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me, because I wasn't so much referring to the drinking bit, which is why it took me so long to realize problem it was creating for me, because I was like, well, I'm not that bad. Like, I'm not a bad drunk, so I'm not that bad. But I just hadn't done the maths, probably because my brain wasn't capable of doing it while I was drinking that much, of like, oh, you're just not giving your brain a break without this stuff in it to have self-compassion, to have a bit of love for yourself, to grow a little bit. And I'm not sober, but I don't drink as much as I used to. And it's been one of the biggest gifts my kids have given me is that space.
I think most people either slow down when they have kids, but for me, like what you were saying before about, we've only got this, they're going to be older soon and all that those thoughts would actually make me thirstier. So I'd be like,
wow.
oh my God, this is like, I'm going to lose everything, and I'm going to lose these precious moments. And
that makes sense.
That kind of did the opposite for me. So I feel like some people really ramp it up and some people are able to taper it down.
That totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
If it's especially if it's been there, not saying this is the case for you, but for people who it's a vice that sort of helps to deal with any kind of anxiety or depressive thoughts or feelings, then I can imagine that it could go through the roof when you have kids. Yeah, definitely.
With your relationship and alcohol, was there a point where it became obvious that your drinking was having an impact on a relationship, or was that not quite the case?
I am seeing more and more things pop up now in the clear light of day. I can point back and go, I can see how that affected you. Actually, there are quite a lot of moments that I can recall, and obviously that trust between us is now hopefully in the course of being rebuilt. But really, I mean, when we first met, it was kind of Partiesville for many years, and then we had kids, and she was able to dial it down, and I guess I was like, oh, I'll dial it down a bit, I'll dial it up, and then over time that graph just went kind of north.
And there's a fair discrepancy sitting there between the two of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every day that goes by, I kind of look back and see how I made things pretty interesting between us, but I didn't notice that at the time.
Before you describe the first few months of sobriety as pretty funky, I'd love to hear more about what that's like, because I think it could be really helpful for people, because I imagine that I'm sure it's different for everyone, but those first few months would be so difficult to get through. How did you manage to get through it?
One thing I didn't know that I kind of know now is that your dopamine system is absolutely fried. So you feel pretty rough for like a good 2 to 3 months. And then every day that progresses, it just becomes better and better and better.
Your dopamine system from the drinking has been fried.
It's kind of amazing what it does to your mind, really. And I had, it was very foggy for like 3 to 6 months until it kind of cleared up. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's my mind would say everything's fine. You don't have a problem. Look, you've just done 2 weeks. You're fine. Go on. Go down to the bar and do what you normally do. But then I know that that's just going to end up in the same cyclical thing over time. So yeah, it's about accepting that maybe your brain doesn't have your best interests at heart, and not to listen to it all the time. And I think that's kind of a big issue with people in general. I feel like people are not really taught how to think. They're only kind of taught what to think. And I still haven't learned how to think, to be honest, but I'm getting there. But yeah, no, the first 3 to 6 months were interesting. I imagine it can be even more interesting if you like have to go to rehab or you're in like delirium tremens or something like that. But I wasn't. That wasn't me. But oh my God, after you get past it and everything starts to kind of come back to normal, kind of feel like a kid again. It's hands down the best thing, the best decision I've ever made.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been incredible, the time I don't know if you can pinpoint, I don't know if it'll be possible to pinpoint a time, but the moment you started to feel your brain almost coming back again and getting that clarity, I don't know if there's a moment that comes to mind, but that must have been an incredible feeling.
Well, I just realized that I didn't get excited about anything. I mean, maybe I'd like, we're playing big stage at Glastonbury, mild, like little bit of a, suddenly life got exciting again, and the highs kind of restructured themselves into a correct ladder, like it was as a kid, like I was a kid again. I didn't think about drinking or what I'd do after playing golf or going to the cinema or like going rock climbing or whatever. It was about the rock climbing, whereas it became about what was happening around the rock climbing.
Everything became kind of like a sort of a vehicle for the drinking. Yeah.
Did you ever think the fact that you could get to that stage, did you ever think that was possible?
No, even when I was in early sobriety, I didn't think that was what was happening. But the best way I can describe it is that, it takes a lot of work, but you essentially go back to being a kid again, and that's how you look at life, and it's extremely pleasurable. Yeah.
It's an amazing way of explaining it, being a kid again. I feel like that's like constantly wanting to be a kid again.
Yeah.
Being a kid's the best.
Yeah. Do you mind me if I ask you, because I know you've written a little bit about it in lyrics, but we were chatting about this earlier and finding it fascinating, the relationship that you've explored a little bit with the antidepressants you're on and creativity and the impact that has. How did you find them to interact with your ability to create?
I was first on citalopram. I don't know, that's the UK name for it. And they put me on an ungodly dose of that. Like, that was pretty high. I was having the best time.
You were high on the
basically
antidepressants.
Yeah, I don't know. They gave me way too much, or I don't know. And everything I wrote was pretty crap for like a year or two, and then I came off them, and then everyone's reactions to the songs I was writing dramatically improved, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is that somewhat linked to those. Then everything got better when I got off the citalopram, but I was on a shockingly high dose where I basically thought everything was incredible all the time. So it probably impaired on kind of, I think being a creative, you need to kind of passionately create and then dispassionately edit. And I probably couldn't do the latter because I was so happy. I thought everything was great.
That's amazing. Passionately create and dispassionately edit.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I still take antidepressants now. I take fluoxetine or Prozac, but only a very small kind of. I imagine I'll be doing those till the cows come home.
Yeah,
till the worms come home.
Well said. Yeah, that's that is such a beautiful way of putting it, because I just realised then, I hope it didn't come across like this, and I definitely didn't want it to, in the question of sort of glamorising the idea of there needing to be like creativity coming from a place of really struggling.
Oh,
I didn't mean it.
No.
Yeah, I hope that didn't come out, because your answer is beautiful. The way that you could then dispassionately edit.
Yeah, no, and I used to think the same. I was like, how am I going to be able to write songs without, whilst being sober, and what am I going to draw from? And I'm not going to get myself into trouble. And like, what am I gonna do? But it's way better. I feel more creative, and life is just endlessly. It's just hilarious. So I don't think there's any shortage of inspiration at the moment.
Before you started going on antidepressants, how dark did it get? Like with the depression, and do you have memories of it being? You mentioned low moods before. Do you have memories of being really quite dark?
Yeah. Sorry, I laugh at it a lot. I don't know if that's sick or twisted or not cool, but there was one time where I had a friend, actually an Australian doctor who I'm still really close with, Dr. Bill. He's like a rock dog in Australia, and I was having a really bad time around just after the third album came out, and I went to see like this crisis psychiatrist in Windsor in London, who he got me in with at the last minute, and that was kind of freaky, and I just couldn't stop. Like, I was just crying at everything. We laugh about it. My wife was living in London with me, and we were watching Jurassic Park, like The Lost Kingdom or whatever, and she was like looking at it, and she just turned around at me, and I was just like bawling my eyes out. Like, I was just so wrapped up in my own. I was so lost in my own head. But I'm trying. I mean, yeah, crying at Jurassic Park, is that the darkest they got? Probably not. No.
Was there any? And there's no pressure to answer this whatsoever. Did you go towards suicidal ideation at all? Was there any of that happening for you? You hear a lot of people saying that that's kind of the moment of it kind of wakes them up or scares them the most.
I'd always had a bit of that. I'd always kind of toy with these darker ideas, but it never progressed past a brief ideation.
Yeah.
I've dipped in and out of those thoughts since I was 15. I don't know. I guess in my head it's like, well, doesn't everyone think like that? But maybe they don't.
Have you watched Jurassic Park: The Lost Kingdom since to see if it actually is that sad?
It's not that sad.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm very lucky that Akemi, my wife, is not. She is very far from sycophantic, or she doesn't buy into my reality or my kind of thoughts and emotions. So she will call me out and go, I can't believe you're crying at this now. You're ridiculous. Go and see someone. That's kind of the. And I think that's how I operate the best with someone like that, rather than someone who is going to kind of affirm everything that I think and feel. But I might be an outlier in regards to that.
How'd you guys meet?
Through a mutual friend in the music industry. Yeah, I woke up in London. I was hungover, and I was like, F this, I'm going to go to LA. And I took a guitar and flew out that night and met her that night.
Oh.
Yeah, my friend was like, you've got to download this app. This is 2013. He was like, you've got to download this app. It's called Uber. I was like, that sounds ridiculous. Yeah, so I met her that night, and then nothing happened for a few months, and then something happened, yeah.
So sorry, I thought you were saying she was the Uber driver.
Oh, no.
That's not...
No.
I kind of feel like, just back to this card, I've been thinking, like, in what ways, so the card says, in what ways do you fear you could negatively impact your children? But it's kind of occurred to me that, like, we should put a card in it that says, in what ways do you think your children could positively impact you?
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like just that story you told about Dylan, and I'm sure there's many others, but I don't have kids, so I don't know. But you hear often that because you obviously learn things from kids, your own kids, I imagine, all the time. Is there anything without wanting to throw a bonus non-existent card in there, other than that, are there ways that you feel like having kids or being a dad has kind of changed your outlook on life, or in a positive way?
Well, just as you were saying that, I was like, kind of being a kid is the goal, right? It's like we should be getting out of their way as much as possible. And that's kind of a place that I feel like I'm getting back into now, going out running or going to the park or going on holiday. All these things are like really exciting to me now because I don't drink anymore. It wasn't all those things just used to be a byproduct of the ultimate kind of escapism that it was surrounded by, and that I should be getting out of the way as much as possible because I have probably a damn sight more to learn from them than they do me.
What has amazed you most about being a dad? Is there any one thing you just like, you didn't see coming, and has not necessarily enriched, but just changed you as a person?
Having someone who's more important than yourself just shifts everything.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing part of life and adulthood, I think. And and especially Dylan's 5 now. She's so outgoing. I just love being around her. I never thought I'd get to I had no idea that relationship or that kind of, love was possible. So yeah, that has changed me a lot for the better.
Well, it is just, as massive fans of your music, it's so cool to meet you. It's so amazing to chat with you.
Thank you.
And thanks for being so generous with your answers as well. I know it's like you've definitely never heard of us and what we do with our podcast, so it's not your normal. It's not your normal podcast about it.
I will say I'm a bit disappointed at the lack of dick mentions from you.
I know. I feel bad. I
You are the dick guy.
Yeah. My reputation preceded you.
But you had it covered with holding his dick all the time.
Oh,
so.
that's true.
Yeah.
It kind of stole your thunder.
I think I said I held it when I was 1 to 3. That's ridiculous. It would have been like 3 to 6, just to clarify.
Okay, now you're creeping a little bit too old. Let's keep the mythology at 1 to 3. No one can disprove that.
True. We'll edit that bit out. But Matthew or Murph, thank you so much for joining us today. It's
Thank
just
you.
been an absolute pleasure.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks so
mate.
much.
Thank you,
you.
mate. Cheers.
Cheers.